But the point you're making about, like, the laws, like, the main thing is, like, you know, it doesn't matter how many laws you make if the people behind these mega corporations are always trying to find some loophole to do these investments that, like, with no knowledge of or awareness of the fact that they are helping an authoritarian regime that is building up its military with the purpose of overthrowing the United States.
But Chris, it doesn't matter because it's not that much of Intel's investment that's going to China.
That's right. They're only going to be a little bit behind the weapons that the PLA uses to kill Taiwanese soldiers and the U.S. soldiers that try to defend them.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people who are doing these investments may not worry too much about that because, you know, maybe they feel that they're citizens of the world.
You know, some of these investment firms have said that, you know, these decisions were made by our China affiliates. Like, they have different venture capital. Like Sequoia was saying, we have a bunch of different independent firms that all operate under Sequoia Capital. So this decision was made by the China-based one.
So it's part of their company or not part of their company?
I think it's technically Sequoia Capital China.
So it's still their company. So either Sequoia is in charge of it and they're responsible for some division being allowed to make these choices, or Sequoia Capital is not behind it and should therefore completely divest from it.
Yeah, and I wonder who is in Sequoia Capital China. Like, who are those people? Are they people with links to the Communist Party?
Well, you have to have people with links to the Communist Party to have a China-based,
So essentially, plants from the Communist Party are in these companies telling them to invest in the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, I don't know that they really have to tell them to. You're already in China. You came here to invest.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not really...
But, like, specifically, like, hey, semiconductors. You know, who cares about... Like, so this week it came out that the Chinese military has created mock-ups of U.S. aircraft carriers that they're using for target practice. Like, is this not clear enough?
I mean, I think a lot of these venture capital firms really are more like, oh, well, our mission is to make money.
You know,
we have a fiduciary responsibility to increase the value for our shareholders.
Well, I mean, Chris, there was just, you know, duct tape mock-ups of U.S. carriers.
I mean, it could
maybe
mean
they were
anything.
they were just, you know, playing a giant game of paintball or something.
Right. It's like when they built that replica of the Taiwanese presidential palace near one of their military bases in China, and then did drills, you know, taking over said mock-up of Taiwan presidential palace. But again, like, that was just a game, so there's no relevance to anything, right?
Yeah, meanwhile, BlackRock telling us to triple our investments in China.
Or Goldman buying more Chinese real estate debt.
Even as the real estate market is imploding.
Well, the Chinese Communist Party is in the middle of bailing out the real estate market.
Yeah, but they have specifically said that, you know, foreign companies are not a priority in that bailout.
No, I don't think Goldman needs to be bailed out right now. I think they're buying the debt because they think that the real estate industry in general will always get bailed out. Like, this is
if you can buy it at 50 cents to the dollar, then now's a great time to invest in China while things are low.
They're also buying Chinese bonds, right?
It seemed from that Bloomberg article that they are buying Chinese government bonds that are yuan denominated. Yeah, so Chinese bonds in yuan.
Here's the thing about buying bonds, right? Like a government issues bonds when they need to raise money to pay for stuff that the government wants to do, right? Like, government raises money largely in two ways, from taxes and from issuing debt like bonds. Yeah, there are other ways, tariffs and whatnot, but like, those are the two main ways. So if you don't have enough tax money, you issue bonds, and these bonds fund whatever the Chinese government wants to do, which means that these U.S. companies are taking their investors' money and directly giving it to the Chinese government to spend on whatever the Chinese government wants. That's crazy.
Oh my God, Matt.
That's crazy. I know it's loud, but I'm so upset by this. Why? Why, people? Why?
They have a fiduciary responsibility.
But yeah, this is the old saying that the capitalist will. Well, who said this? Lenin.
Supposedly Lenin said this. I have not looked it up.
Capitalists will sell us the rope that we'll use to hang them.
Could have been Mark Twain.
Could have been Mark Twain. Who knows?
Or Abraham Lincoln.
Could have been Gandhi, Confucius.
Gandhi.
It was probably Confucius, right?
Yeah, but it is these people, like, they don't have any consequences for their actions. I mean, other people will have to pay the price. Any U.S. soldiers who get caught up in a conflict with China, they'll have to pay the price for their giving the Chinese Communist Party money to make semiconductors.
Even before it gets to the point of a kinetic war, right? We are already paying the price.
That's true.
Paying the price with COVID-19. We are paying the price with what is happening to the what's happened to U.S. manufacturing, what's happening to the U.S. economy right now. Like, this is
supply chains.
Yeah, the supply chain whole just-in-time bringing things from Asia, that all happened because we decided to offshore to places like China.
And why do we do that? Because of a fiduciary responsibility.
They could make a lot more money and, something globalization.
Well, it results in lower prices for consumers in America. And that part is actually true. It's just that the part that you don't see is, like, the prices are lower, but Americans, especially the bottom 50% of Americans, are making substantially less money now because of the hollowing out of manufacturing, which has taken away jobs, which also those manufacturing jobs, disproportionately are held by lower income people with lower educations, typically more minorities, right? So that whole manufacturing transition has hurt the most vulnerable Americans. And, like, if you used to work in the U.S. auto manufacturing industry, you would make in like 2021 dollars, you'd make the equivalent of, like, $40 an hour, right? Sometimes $60. Like, you make a lot of money as a high school diploma auto worker. But now, wages have been driven down so much.
They're even saying that the new $15 minimum wage is now meaningless because of how much inflation has boosted prices.
I feel like, people have been pushing for $15 an hour for as long as I can remember. It's been at least a decade. The fight for 15 and different movements, right? So now, especially now, we've seen 6+% inflation this year, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't mean that much anymore. But at any rate, like, whether or not you support a federally mandated minimum wage, I think everyone can agree that the better thing is for the market to drive wages higher than whatever that would be, because of the natural market forces where companies are looking for workers, and, workers have enough sort of different opportunities and negotiating power to be able to get decent livable wages. And that's not happening, and it's been getting worse since the late 90s.
Well, now it's maybe happening.
Yeah. Well, so actually that's interesting, because 2021, we've seen, like, these worker shortages, right? I was talking to a landscaper a couple of weeks ago. He's like, yeah, like, I just can't hire enough people to do all the jobs that I want done. And this is, like, a lot of this stuff is not high skill work, leaf blowing and whatnot. And, like, that's how bad the shortage is. But while wages have gone up, wages have gone up 5.8% in the last year, but inflation is 6.2%. So, like, inflation is still worse. It's like there's still a 0.4 gap that wages have lagged inflation despite the worker shortage. And, at a very fundamental level, China has a big role to play in this, right? At a fundamental level, the gradual look, it's not just China, right, that America has outsourced to. And I think it would be disingenuous to say, oh, well, China is the only one to blame. And, in the 80s, it was Japan making lower cost electronics and so on. And now it's more diverse than just China, because you have Southeast Asia and whatnot. But China is still nonetheless a big and very significant part of that. and perhaps the main thrust of that as well. The drop in American wages has been highly correlated with having manufacturing done in China. And it's not just, low technology manufacturing, like putting together plushes or even manufacturing steel, but it's also now things like, college educated, PhD educated jobs like making semiconductors. And that's, another further hollowing out of the American workforce as American venture capital funds the kind of industries in China that, could otherwise be done in America by college educated people, advanced degree educated Americans. Like, these jobs are just going to go away. And Xi Jinping's plan is to, become firstly self-sufficient in all these industries. And then on top of that, to start making the rest of the world depend on those products that they're making.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just those products, but the idea is that we've already kind of made the rest of the world dependent on Chinese products. We need to continue that even as we are self-sufficient.